Yo, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are live with you all here again for episode number 7, actually. Um, we will be covering quite a bit today with a little bit of different sports event. I'm sorry, kind of adjusting some things around here. But I'm Selfless Gaming, as you all know if you've been tuning in. Uh, I am on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. Everything is selfless_gaming except for my Twitter. That is, you should be able to find it under selfless gaming, but it's actually turdslinger9000 is the at on my Twitter. To my left here is Little Jacob. Little Jacob, take it away.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back. Little Jacob here. Also, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter. I have a Facebook page, but primarily communicate on Twitch and Twitter. And it's good to be back. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. We're starting to get into the basketball season. So there's a lot of interesting topics to go into, and looking towards week 6, the NFL season and fantasy.
Yep, it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of I feel like there's especially a lot of injuries this past week to some key players that we can discuss as well. But usually we cap it off with our fantasy football team's performance. So, Little Jacob, I'll let you lead us with that there.
Yeah, for sure. So thankfully, we were able to move up to 4-1. I was kind of worried with Matthew Stafford's performance. They won, but he only threw like a touchdown, got 18 points. There was some really big games. Again, from Najee Harris, he had 22 points. Tyreek Hill had a decent game Sunday night. Amari Cooper, he did get a touchdown there. I was the big thing that I think helped me out the most for sure, which I woke up to as a surprise because I didn't realize that the Falcons were playing the Jets in London. Was Kyle Pitts was just having a monster game, 9 catches, 119 yards and a touchdown. This was the big game that I was waiting and hoping that he would have, and I'm glad that I drafted him for it. So it was really good. It was a really good day for me. It turned out. Leonard Fournette had a good game as well, a touchdown, 67 yards. So that had me at 1, 2, 3, at least 3 players with 20 points or more. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 players with at least 14 points or more. So that helped me put me over the top. Thankfully, for my fantasy season, I was actually able to play my boss. He has a pretty good team with Dak Prescott on the Cowboys. So he got some good points out of him and some other good players. But yeah, we're able to pull through. Looks like for the matchup that I'm coming up next is gonna be pretty good. The only dilemma I have is that Gronk is out again, and Pitts has a bye week, so I had to pick someone off the free agency list. The guy that I'm playing, it looks like I should be able to beat him. McCaffrey is not officially a go for Sunday. It's going to be a game time decision. He tried to start him, so if he decides if he doesn't change him out in time and he doesn't play, or if he swaps him out, I think that I'll be good. Also, there's no guarantee on how McCaffrey is going to perform coming off that injury, so we'll see. It looks like it should have a promising week, though. I do have best hopes that I can go to 5-1 for sure. But we'll see. Things change, player performances and everything. I know you were kind of talking about how your fantasy week has been going as far as like players just, you're having a good team or a good game, and then other players and other teams, and they're just playing the best game of their career. So happens. So I
Yep.
know you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just cursed this year for fantasy, man. Like we were talking about it over the weekend, and a guy in my like league chat basically he's just like, dude, Pat's team is like cursed this year. My team has been the most consistent out of everybody's, and it's every week there's like a defense that goes off for 24 points, or they'll have like um, 2 or 3 guys on their team. They'll drop like 30 points, and it's just stupid
Yeah.
stuff. Like the guy I faced this week, he literally had a guy who went point 0.7 and had 4 points in 2 players, and I
Mm-hmm.
still ended up losing by like 12 points or something like that. And it's my team, like almost everybody on my team almost averaged 20 points if you like split it up amongst them. And
Yeah.
you should be winning those games, but it just is what it is. Like, it's frustrating because there's not a lot of movement I can do because my players are like really good and consistent.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, man. Like, just kind of cursed, you know. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes the seasons just go like them. And like you're saying, you can have decent players score like 20 or so points, and then the guy on the other side has two players that score like 30 or 40, and it's something crazy. I get it for sure.
yep. So um, but moving
Take a look
into
here
the
at
upcoming weeks.
my team, and yeah, so I don't know how to picking up the Washington tight end because that was the best free agent available. Um, he might do decent. He's projected to score at least 9 points. I think with the injuries that they have in Washington and the terrible, just abysmal pass defense that the Chiefs have, I think he might get a lot more targets than he usually has. So I'm hoping that that's something that gets some decent work for me, for sure. Hopefully it's not a dud or anything because I know he was a free agent. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, this is actually the first. It's actually the first week I'm not projected to win.
Gonna go ahead and start Stafford against the Giants because, well, I think we already know how that Giants game went in the situation. Um, I didn't think it was a good idea personally to start Murray against they're playing Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland. So I'm gonna go ahead and go forward with Stafford.
Yeah. And Stafford, they're playing the Giants. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, we're playing the Giants.
So teams on buys this week are Atlanta, the Saints, the Jets, and the 49ers and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I think Stafford would. I don't know, man. Murray. I think with how versatile Murray would be too. Like, I don't think in your situation, whoever you start, you'll be okay with. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, but let's dive into these week 6 matchups. Kind of get like your take on what you think for this week. Our stardom, stidum, little segment we like to go through, and there are some interesting matchups, but there's also some where I feel like they're pretty lopsided. But it's the pros. You never know how things.
Yeah,
Well, you go ahead and start.
yeah, for sure. As far as quarterbacks, if you're gonna start someone this week, I would definitely start Joe Burrow against the Detroit Lions. I mean, they haven't won a football game. It seems like no matter what they do, they just can't get over the hump, and their defense is giving up a lot of points all the time. Joe Burrow, I think, is going to be fine. I know he's a little issue where he got hit in the throat, which is really unfortunate, but I think he's going to be good to go game day. I think he's going to get Higgins back too. Jamar Chase is playing great. I think they're going to be firing all cylinders coming into that Lions game. I mean, Joe Burrow has thrown at least two touchdown passes every game this season, so that's really working for him. Um, I think with the Lions, they have allowed about, it says here, 26 offensive points per game.
Yeah.
So that's like seventh in the NFL. So I really think Joe Burrow's going to take advantage of that. And they got a pretty good running attack too with Joe Mixon out there. So I would definitely start Joe Burrow if you get the chance. As far as sitting a quarterback, I would want to say if you're going to sit a quarterback this week, it's definitely going to have to be. I mean, it's a tough one because there's different situations and matchups coming out this week. But I mean, if you're gonna sit a quarterback, I wouldn't start Ben Roethlisberger
Oh
against
yeah,
the Seahawks. Even as good as the game was for him this past week, I just don't see him having that much of a repeat against the Seahawks defense. And then without having Schuster out there, he's gone. They replaced him with another receiver. That was like someone that was cut from the Texans. I don't even know who that guy is. I just don't see him really having much of a game. So you definitely want to sit him if you were planning to start him. So that would be as far as for quarterbacks. Running backs, I was just going through a list here. There's some really good matchups this week for running backs, I think. One of those really good matchups is going to be Josh Jacobs versus the Broncos. I think that he's going to probably have a big impact on that football game. Jacobs was really good against the Broncos last season, and the plays that he made, are still stand out to me of what he was able to do. It's a big rivalry game. It is going to be interesting to see how the whole team progress through the game. I mean, they're still 3-2. I think the Broncos are 3-2 as well. So that's going to be a big matchup, and I think that Josh Jacobs is going to shine for them in that situation. Because I think the Broncos are gonna force them to run the ball a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's one guy that I would really consider starting. Um, if you're gonna sit somebody, believe it or not, I would say if you have Chris Carson with the Seahawks, I would sit him against the Steelers. I really like Chris Carson, but I just don't see him having a good game this week. Who have actually allowed the Steelers to actually, believe it or not, despite their record, have allowed I think it's the fourth fewest fantasy points to running backs this season. So it doesn't really sound like Chris Carson is really poised to have a good game as much as I like him, and I have had him on my fantasy team before. I would definitely sit him when it comes down to it for this matchup. Um, Receivers, right? Wide receivers that are going to be playing the game. I would really, really like to see, or I would really like to start if I had him, Odell Beckham against the Cardinals. I think he's going to be pretty good this game. He's had at least 140 plus yards in 2 of his 3 games this season. He's really been putting up some numbers. I think he has potential to really go out there and have a great game. I don't know that they'll actually beat the Cardinals, but I do like the matchup. I don't really see anyone on that Cardinals defense that can cover him when it comes down to it. Um, I would start him if you get the chance or if you can pick him up. That's a good idea to me, for sure. If you're gonna sit a receiver, I'm kind of trying to think here because there's going to be some really good matchups at receiver this week. That's a tough one for receivers. Excuse me. Honestly, one receiver that I'd probably end up sitting is probably Cortland Sutton from the Denver Broncos. Just looking at the way he performed last week, it wasn't all that great. And coming up against the Raiders, I don't see him getting a lot of fantasy points against them. He's second in the NFL with in air yards per game, but I just don't see them getting that kind of yardage against the Raiders at all this year. So Cortland Sutton's probably somebody I would sit or try to stay away from in that situation. Him and also probably Jalen Waddle in that Jaguars game. That'd probably be a bad idea to have him start in that one just because of the matchups. And I'm just considering the matchups. I mean, it could be wrong. It could go the complete opposite direction. Just going based on what I think and I see in the matchups who they're facing on the other side of the football. But yeah, those would be the starting systems that I have for this next week coming up.
Yeah. For quarterback, I really like Tom Brady this week. I know
Yeah,
I really haven't talked much about him. I love Joe Burrow. I think that's a solid pick as well. Um, One quarterback that I'd actually like be very hesitant to play this week is actually definitely Mac Jones against Dallas. I think Dan Quinn is going to bring a lot of unique blitzes and stuff and put a lot of pressure on him, especially seeing the fact that he, like their defense has been causing turnovers every game.
yeah.
Um, Another one I would sit this week is actually the crap. I just had it. Where'd it go? Uh, I literally just looked right at it. Where did it go? Oh, Tennessee. Matt or Ryan Tannehill. I almost said Matt Ryan.
Tannehill, yeah,
Yeah,
Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill. Going against the Buffalo Bills. To be honest, right now with the way that the NFL has been playing out, I don't see anybody slowing down Buffalo. Buffalo is an
Yeah,
absolute beast right now. I don't see anybody holding them up. And the reason I feel that way is because in all their games and the teams that they've played against, they lost against the Steelers first game of the year. But ever since then, if a team's secondary is like sus, they exploit that. If a
yeah,
team's run defense is sus, they exploit that. Against the Chiefs, they literally came out first drive of the series and Josh Allen had like 4 or 5 runs for like almost
yeah.
10 yards and a touchdown, and they just went right at him like the Ravens did because their run defense is terrible. Um,
Mhm.
so they have a ton of weapons right now, and their defense has gotten a lot better since last year. So I would actually avoid Ryan Tannehill. As far as running backs this week, I actually like um, Austin Eckler against the Ravens. I know that's kind of crazy because the Ravens defense, run defense, isn't that bad. But with what Jonathan Taylor was able to do, he didn't have a lot
Yeah,
of rushing, but he had a lot of receiving. And Austin Eckler is probably one of the best like three down backs as far as his versatility. And he has a really good quarterback that is very smart with the football.
absolutely.
Um, I also like the matchup with the Rams and the Giants. I think Daryl Henderson is going to have a good day at running back as well. Running backs I would definitely avoid this week would be DeAndre Swift. Um, the Bengals defense is actually not giving up a lot of rushing yards. They're pretty solid, like up front.
Yeah.
Another one that I would avoid this week would also be that of Miles Sanders for Philadelphia. Definitely wouldn't have him in this week against the Bucks rushing attack, or not rushing attack, but rushing defense. And then wide receivers, I actually like a lot this week.
Mhm.
Um, I like Ruggs from the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
I also like Darren Waller from the Raiders. Honestly, anybody from Buffalo, like as far as Emmanuel Sanders or Stephon Diggs, you can definitely play those guys. I think they're going to have a good week against Tennessee. One of the people I would avoid this week is definitely where was he at? Kenny Galladay for the New York
Okay.
Giants, primarily because he's going to be covered by Jalen Ramsey, but the Giants most likely are not going to have their quarterback in Daniel Jones. So I really don't like any of the plays of Giants players this week, just to kind of sum that up. Um, I do think Odell could have a good game. The only concern I have there is
Mhm.
basically like from what I've seen with the Browns, when they can get their running game going, they can open up their playbook a lot. When
Yeah.
they can't get that going, then they kind of become pretty like predictable, in my opinion. Because I felt like last week, even though they played like pretty well overall, they
Mhm.
Odell got doubled up quite a bit, and David Njoku, their tight end, had a monstrous game. Like he had like 25 points in fantasy. So I don't know if they'll do that. I think like early on in the game, if they can get the running game going, then Odell will have a lot of opportunities. But if they can control that, maintain the run, then I think he could be a little limited. But his upside is there. Like he's definitely one to definitely take a risk on for sure. Um, and then another, like I guess technically wide receiver by fantasy standpoints is uh Jajeski. I always screw this guy's name up. Pull it up real quick. The Mike Jajeski, the tight end for Miami. I think he will actually have a very productive week um, going against the Jags because their defense is they're better. They're getting better. They're starting to be more competitive. But I think with what they have to offer, I actually see that tight end doing pretty well this week. So yeah. Is there any matchups like that you like this week? That like say if you had to put money on them, you'd definitely roll the dice with them.
Sure. One of those really big matchups that I think everyone's gonna really want to keep their eye on, or if you can watch the game, it's gonna be a great game. That's gonna be the Chargers and the Ravens. I mean, if I had to put my money on one of those teams, man, as much as I really like the Chargers, what they're doing, Justin Herbert's doing this season again. I mean, both teams are 4-1. If I could put my money on one of these two teams, it'd definitely be the Ravens. I think that especially after they had that one loss, that really left a chip on their shoulder, kind of like a couple of other teams. They had the one loss, and since then they've really been finding a way to win every single football game they played since then. Um, Lamar Jackson had a phenomenal game on that big comeback victory recently, right? So
Yeah.
I don't see them slowing down. I see them coming in this game with a lot of confidence. I see Lamar Jackson, still riding hot off of the hot arm and legs. I mean, he just had a great game overall to come back like he did in the fourth quarter. I don't see him slowing down. These guys are going to have a lot of swag coming into this game. It's going to be a good game. I don't think it'll be really a big victory for them, but
Mhm.
I do think that they're going to win, even if it's by a small margin, let's say at least a touchdown. Um, uh, it's going to be a great game, man. I mean, there's so many good things about when you have two teams that are playing the way that they are. Lamar Jackson is the only QB since 1970 with like 5 starts and 0 losses in October. So he's always played really well this month.
Yeah.
Um, just going over some of the numbers here, these guys are both playing great football, both quarterbacks, him and Herbert. So Ravens actually have the ranked number one offense, sixth ranked overall number one, passing is sixth, rushing is fourth. The defense for the Chargers is pretty decent too. So it's going to be interesting to see how the matchups happen. The last time they played each other, which is like in 2018, the Ravens won 22-10, but this is a much better Chargers team than 2018. So yeah, this is an exciting game for sure.
I feel like if you can, like, it used to kind of be the narrative of, oh, if you can make Lamar beat you throwing, then you have a chance of winning. But he has actually like progressed very well this year with his
Yeah,
like throwing and stuff. And I think with the addition of Sammy Watkins and some of the guys they've brought in, like that's actually helped him a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chargers defense holds up against him.
yeah, for sure. Um, I know that the definitely one thing the Ravens are going to do really well against the Chargers team is shut down the run. Baltimore has not allowed a player to rush for more than 60 yards in a game this year. But also what's interesting is Justin Herbert is 8-1 in his last 9 games, with the only loss being to Dallas. So yeah, it's going to be a crucial matchup. This is probably going to be one of the best um, matchups that you're going to see within the AFC conference. And you never know, these teams might be seeing each other again in the playoffs with the way that
True.
things are going for both of them. And that would be a really exciting time for them.
It's true. I can actually see that being a potential like matchup again in the playoffs. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Because right now, aren't the Chargers like they're leading the AFC West, right? They're in first.
They should be. Let me double check, but yeah, they should be.
I'm pretty sure they
Um,
are, and I think like
yeah,
either
yeah, they are. Yeah,
because I know the Chiefs like to actually say this is kind of wild, but the Chiefs are last,
yeah,
I think, which is kind of crazy. So
man. And it's like okay. I'm more than comfortable and confident with the lead that Dallas has in the NFC East, right?
mm,
But definitely every chance you get or every week you would hope to solidify your division lead by hoping your rivals lose every week that they can while you're winning. It's going to be really interesting to see if Kansas City is going to be able to beat this Washington team. I know this sounds crazy, and clearly on paper they have a much more explosive offense and should win, right? But I mean, with the way they performed, and if Washington is able to take advantage of that really poor defense, who knows what can happen? But of course, I got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping that they don't let Washington win. That'll put them down back a game. We're looking most likely to win this game. But I think it's going to be an interesting game because the Chiefs are really doing some soul searching right now, I think. And man, if they lose to Washington, I think it's going to just be nothing but drama and turmoil in that locker room
they're struggling.
and for all of them because they're going to have to start figuring out things fast. I mean, we're going into week 6 and they're just looking like the Chiefs of old before Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and you know what I mean, where they just weren't good.
Yeah, because like I mean they beat the Browns 33-29, lost to the Ravens 36-35, Chargers 30-24, Eagles they won 42-30, and then they got manhandled by the Bills. Like it's 38-20, like it's 18 points, but I'm surprised that wasn't worse in my opinion. Like with that game, the way they played, and they're just having a ton of turnovers right now, which is uncharacteristic of that team. But them losing was it Clyde Edwards Hilaire, however you
Yeah,
say his name. Like, I think that kind of messed up their game plan quite a bit because they usually
yeah,
like rely on him. But I don't know, man. It's definitely there's something off with that team this year for sure.
yeah. I think another game that's interesting to me, and don't get me wrong, this could easily not be a game at all and only be one sided and go one direction. And that's Green Bay Packers and the Bears. The Bears are 3-2. Packers are 4-1, right? If the Bears somehow manage to really fire on all cylinders, Justin Field just has one of the best days, and they're able to slow down the Packers enough to win this game. They're going to be sitting at 4-2, and Green Bay will be sitting at 4-2. So this is a unique opportunity for them to really turn things around for their football team, and it's a rivalry game, and those are usually the more exciting games. I know last year. Or the last time they played, the Packers kind of really beat up on the Bears. It's like 35-16. But I think it'll be an interesting game. Rivalry matches usually can be, and with a guy like Justin Fields um, out there, and he's kind of like hopefully finding a way to boost that offense. I mean, they're still ranked dead last, I think, in passing,
Yeah,
but the rushing is ninth, so they're up there in running the game in the running game. And I think if Justin Fields has a little bit more experience now, he's getting another start. He is more comfortable, and he starts getting down his touches on the throws. Who knows, man? He might be able to bamboozle this Packers defense,
it's true. Yeah.
some on his legs or with his arm. So it's going to be interesting to see that. I think that might end up being a good game, but we'll see.
Well, and one thing too, it always seems like the first time Green Bay and Chicago always play every season, it always comes down to like Aaron Rodgers having to go on one of those Aaron Rodgers last drives of the game to go down and win
Oh,
it and do something like spectacular. Like, I don't know why it's been that way for the past few years, but Chicago always has their number the first matchup and they find a way to blow it. And
yeah,
I don't know, but it will be interesting to see how that young quarterback in Fields like progresses for sure and how he comes along. Um, I'm actually pretty interested in the Arizona game, the Cleveland game. I think Cleveland's offense can definitely keep up with them. I'm more interested to see how their defense handles somebody like Kyler Murray, though, because they're
yeah,
not like. The reason I say that is because Cleveland sees essentially Kyler Murray twice a year and Lamar Jackson, like the ability to scramble and make like plays with his feet and stuff. So I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to come out and play that. The other game I'm very interested in too is um, the Raiders and the Broncos because
yeah,
all of the John Gruden issues and stuff that have recently come to light
yeah,
within the NFL and his resignation from the team as the coach. It's going to be very interesting one to see what the plans are moving forward and how that
yeah,
team responds because sometimes having like a leader like a coach like that who is very
yeah,
well recognized within the league, then all
yeah,
of a sudden their departure is based around like a lot of controversial comments and racial
yeah,
slurs and things like that. Um, that one it's detrimental to lose your coach, but
yeah,
two, to all of a sudden have like this person that like say I respected as a player and looked up to as a coach with all his
yeah,
knowledge in the league, and then it's like, oh wow, you're actually this kind of person, and their like true character comes out and is revealed. That can make you one completely like not want to perform for the person and go out there and like play for that organization. But then the other thing I saw too was like, yeah, this has been going on with him since 2011. Like the emails are from 2011 to 2018 that have been surfacing. And some of the stuff that came up, it was like, okay, this is really bad, and John Gruden's like career's over. But then the
yeah,
question was, well, all these other people that were enabling it need to go as well. So now it's kind of turned into a bigger thing of, well, how long did the organization know about this? And did they
mhm,
like turn the other way and not really look into these matters? And like, as that stuff starts to come out, I don't know. You can either have a Raiders team who rally around it and do great and want to change the outlook of this organization,
Yep.
or if stuff comes out, they can be like, yeah, I'm not playing for this team. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, and it really, really, I mean, 100% right. I mean, I think it goes without saying you don't have to really explain that, that all of everything that he did and said from that standpoint is completely unprofessional,
oh, 100%. Yeah.
wrong on all levels, and in no place anywhere is there any kind of room for something like that or that kind of talk or hate anything. So when you take that right into effect, that as a football coach, he does a really good job coaching. You take that away, and then, like you said, you like, hey, it actually turns out this person that is a good football coach, right, is actually a terrible person
Yeah. Terrible
in the
person.
season where you're having a pretty good season, right? That can really derail, like, not just the football team, the morale, the entire organization, like you're saying. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they recover from that. I think one of my friends that's a Raiders fan said that they're planning to have the special teams coach be filling the head coach slot.
Really?
I don't think they're going to do too much different, in my opinion, from what John Gruden and the rest of the coaching staff was already doing. I
Yeah.
don't see why they would get away from the game plan and the things that are working for them. So I think at this point, it's just going to be more of a team chemistry standpoint. Because obviously, everyone knows the coach there. It's not like a brand new coach they have, whether it's the assistant coach or the special teams coach that decides to do the head coaching. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting as they record because this is a big time rivalry matchup. Um, it would really help them out to win this game and go 4-2 and beating a rival in their division. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah.
But
Because
like I
they're,
said, I expect it to be business as usual for the Raiders as
yeah.
far as their game plan and how they approach the football game. So yeah, definitely going to be an interesting matchup all around
Yeah.
for
Because
that
they're
rivalry game.
technically, that game, they're technically playing for second place right now in that division
Yeah,
and stuff, which has been very heavily controlled by the Chiefs the past few years. So be
yeah,
interesting to see with everything coming out how they respond to that.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I think this week is, like you said, we're week 6 um, into the NFL season. We have still got several more to go. We still got what,
Yeah,
11 more weeks to go, but you're starting to get some of these teams that have a bye this week. So then your lineups start to have to automatically change because of guys that you don't have available. But with that being said, man, like there's a lot of injuries right now to some key guys,
yeah.
and they definitely play an impact with some of these teams. So it'll be really interesting to see how their game plans and philosophies change with certain personnel out. So
Yeah. And definitely, one thing that I wanted to ask you, and, definitely whoever is listening, listeners, even if it's after the podcast, curious to know some of your opinions too. Who are some guys that you guys think, or that you specifically think right now, selfless, that you would see as a front runner at this point in the season as possible MVP candidates? I think some of the guys, like just some of the names that you would just throw out there right off the back that you can think of.
definitely Kyler Murray, because his performance week in, week out has been outstanding.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott. Okay, I'm just gonna say this: if Dak Prescott does not win comeback like Player of the Year, then people are blind. Like the dude
Yeah.
had a horrific injury, and I said this a couple episodes ago. I think what we're seeing this year from him is what we were actually going to see last year, but he got hurt. I think Dak is right there in the conversation as well with what they've been able to do. Uh, honestly, like from quarterback standpoints, if I had to break it down like MVP potential,
Hmm.
quarterback, I would definitely say Kyler Murray, Dak at 2. Tom Brady would be 3 in my opinion. I would put Rodgers at 4, and I'd put Stafford at 5. If we broke it down into running backs, I personally like Nick Chubb a lot. I think he's doing very well.
Yeah.
Um, Aaron Jones is also a top candidate as well. And I would honestly look at potentially if Joe Mixon didn't get hurt and miss a couple games, think Joe Mixon could kind of be in a conversation.
Yeah.
Um, Wide receivers, though, I love Cooper Kupp, man. Like that guy is ridiculous. He's the number one wide receiver right now for like targets, receptions. I think Debo Samuel is still leading the league in yards. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know like him and Cooper Kupp are like right there with each other.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I think Cooper Kupp, as far as wide receivers, he's definitely number one. Uh, I also like Michael Williams from the Chargers. Like that dude
Yeah, I
is a
was gonna say.
Megatron, man. He's a legit Megatron from back in the day.
He actually leading right now with the most receiving touchdowns. He has 6.
I could
Cooper
see
Cup
that.
has 5.
I could see that, yeah. And so like I'd put Mike Williams in that conversation as well. Um, but you also have like Devontae Adams. He's got to be
Oh
in
yeah.
that conversation. Amari Cooper could be in the conversation. Um, and I was just looking at somebody else. I literally skimmed over him. Um, and well, honestly, man, like if Gronk didn't get hurt,
Hmm.
you could technically say Gronk because the first couple of games he was averaging 1 to 2 touchdowns a game. So he could have been potentially one as well. But I think overall defense, if I had to go with the solid defense right now, um, definitely Dallas leading the way with what
Yeah.
they've done from last year to this year. But also the Bills, man. The Bills defense is tough. Like they give up some points, but they're pretty tough.
Oh yeah, you're gonna earn everything that you get against the Bills defense for sure. There's no question about it, and they're not gonna make it an easy night for any of their opponents. I think when you were mentioning quarterbacks, I definitely agree with most of the list that you're mentioning. I think another person that it comes to mind, you've heard me talk about him several times since we started doing this. I think Justin Herbert might end up being up there in that conversation as well as far as MVP for a quarterback. I mean, the kid's just playing phenomenal again. I mean, he's 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's got about 1,500 yards under his belt already. He's got a pretty good QBR at 104. He's playing phenomenal. He's making 67% of his passes. With Kyler Murray, 75%. I just saw that. I didn't realize that he was really just zipping it in like that. The only person who's close to Kyler Murray in completions right now, as far as percentage goes, is Dak at 73.
Yeah.
Him and Kyler both have an outstanding QBR per game. I mean, Kyler Murray's sitting at a solid 113. Dak is almost at 117. But definitely some really great play from them. And I mean, they stay healthy and their key weapons and guys stay healthy. I don't see any reason why it's going to change with those guys being front runners for the MVP conversation for quarterbacks, for sure.
Do you know who
And it looks like
technically has the highest quarterback rating right now in the league through 5 games?
Dak.
Nope.
Wait, who'd you say?
That's not Dak.
Let me see here. I can pull it up.
Highest quarterback rating, QBR rating.
Dak rating.
They're currently at 118.8, and that is Cedric Wilson.
Cedric Wilson.
Yep. He has completed one pass on one attempt. He's 100%.
Oh
For a
my
total
god.
of 22 yards.
He has a perfect rating.
Perfect rating, pretty much. Yep. I literally just like came across this and it was like perfect QBR rating through 5 games, and I was like, this is stupid.
Oh man.
But I mean, it's
Oh.
it's technically a stat, you know. So,
Yeah, I mean it is. It is because I'm over here trying to look for him. And be
but
like, wait, who
I
is
think
higher?
Dak actually might have like the highest one,
He
like
does.
legit.
Actually, it's Russell Wilson at 125.3, but I mean he's thrown 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. But Russell Wilson's Russell Wilson. Um, I mean he's always played great even when his team isn't. So, man, and speaking of that, I mean, what do you think? What do you guys think, or what do you think about Russell Wilson? You think he's going to be a Seahawk next year? You think he might go somewhere? Honestly, if I was someone like the Steelers, I'd try to trade for him however I could to get him to come over. But
I could
do you think
actually
he'll be a
see
Seahawk?
I could see him not being a Seahawk next year. Um,
Yeah.
it would not surprise me if the Packers made some moves to possibly acquire him because they have a young quarterback in Justin Love who is going to be fairly productive. I mean, hell, dude, Geno Smith came in and just went right down the field. You know,
Yeah.
I thought Geno Smith died when they said Geno Smith is in the game. I was like, wait, what? This dude's still in the league?
I forgot. I'm not gonna lie. I did forget about Geno Smith. I completely forgot that he was even still somebody that was a free. Besides a free agent, for sure.
Yep, he is
But yeah, it's
freaking in the
interesting.
league
Yeah,
still.
I'm glad to see that. I think another front runner for MVP is going to be Derrick Henry. I mean, he's doing his thing again. He's leading the league with rushing again. 640 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's doing great. And then it's really good to see. It's really good to see my boy Zeke back up there in the top 5 running backs.
Yep.
After more than a month of football, so I'm excited for him to come back to form. I know he worked really hard all off season. And trained really hard, and everything that he's doing to pay dividend. And then it's crazy too because Tony Pollard, our other running back, is in the top 10. So that's just a testament to the carry that they're getting, and just shout outs to both of them. That's really good to see. When
Where
you have
is
3 of your offensive players leading in stats.
where do Chubb and Kareem Hunt rank?
Chubb is number 2 behind Derrick Henry at 523 yards.
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt, let's see. Kareem Hunt's actually not too far down the list. Let's see, he's about
Because they got a really good like tandem between those two.
he's about 17 on the list, but considering how much they split carries and but he's up there too. He's definitely in
He's
the
more
first.
of their like pass uh receiving back and stuff. Like he's
Oh
really
yeah,
good in the field, like open field and all that stuff. So that doesn't like surprise me that he's that far down the list because he's usually
yeah,
utilized
for
more for
sure.
like third down situations. But still, man, like he's like Kareem Hunt's actually tied second for touchdowns. He's number
Hmm.
2 at 5. So
Yeah, he's a guy that you can really count on in the red zone, especially because he's a big, strong back.
mhm.
He's really good at running down or running over corners and safeties, and you can depend on him in the end zone. So it's not a surprise that he's up there with the touchdowns uh, at all whatsoever.
Yeah. Um, so let's switch it up here a bit. Let's talk about the fight this past weekend, man. Like, I'm not really too big into boxing, and I don't really have a ton of knowledge about it, but I know there was definitely the way the fight started and how it ended changed drastically during that event. But I'll let
Yeah,
you like speak to that and everything with the Wilder Fury fight, the
yeah, definitely
trilogy.
a big heavyweight showdown. I know Wilder showed up looking a little bit slimmer, ready to go as always. And sort of Fury. I mean, the guy came out with this Spartan gear on, and he had like a whole 300, Gypsy King kind of esque entrance going, and it was really dope. Um, and it started off pretty exciting. I mean, if I remember correctly, Wilder was dropped in the second round. He got up in, now we're moving to the fourth round. Wilder's doing something that he wasn't doing in the first 2 fights. He was boxing, and meaning that he's actually trying to use an in and out boxing technique, getting in, landing shots, getting out versus his typical slugger type brawling fighting styles. For those of you who may not be familiar, that's more of just like I'm gonna go in there and just swing as hard as I can every time, and go for the kill. And he was doing a great job. Fourth round came around, and Wilder ends up knocking down Fury 2 times. And at that point, I'm thinking, man, like this is getting really bad for Fury. Wilder got knocked down once. He's sticking to his game plan. He's working the body, going back up to the head. He's getting in and out. He's landing good shots. He's making Fury really work for his punches. And then, it's like after that fourth round, I don't know if it's because Wilder just was starting to get hit more. If he just got his head. Sometimes fighters will have this bad habit of um, having a game plan that their trainers and everybody gives them to fight a specific fighter. And then once they get in the ring, they deviate away from that game plan. They start going into the old habits. Basically, what Wilder ended up doing was going back to what he was doing in the first 2 fights that ended up making him lose, which is just swinging for the fences, just trying to put all his power behind every punch, He wasn't really sticking to the game plan and going to the body. He was all headshots, and he gassed himself out. And of course, unlike Wilder, Tyson Fury is more of a puncher boxer, and not so much of a guy as a brawler that's going to try to slug your head off. And he was working the body, working the jab. He's getting in and out, making Wilder miss, and he's catching him. And then evidently by the 11th round, Wilder's gassed. Wilder's gassed out. Fury's tagging him and ended up knocking him out with some really good clean punches. So it was a really good fight. I mean, kudos to Wilder for being able to stick it out and putting on a good performance. But at the end, he fell back into some of his old habits and ways and ended up costing him the fight. And I think I told you earlier, it kind of reminds me of something that Mike Tyson said, and that's everyone has a plan till they start getting hit. And it's just that was my diagnosis of that fight, that it was a fight that Wilder could have won, but he just got away from the game plan, man.
Yeah.
And he got dropped. And it's really impressive, Fury, his performance. I don't think in a way. I think it's really impressive that Fury is damn near 300 pounds. And he may not look like the prototypical heavyweight boxer or someone that's as, like, I guess you could say, as fit looking as Wilder, because Wilder did come in significantly lighter, I think, into that fight. But nonetheless, it was a great performance by both of them. And Fury really is looking like that guy that's going to be the man to stop. I think next up for him might be fighting Juszczyk. That'd be a good fight to see, because that's really the only other person I could see him fighting next if he does. So yeah, it was a good fight, man. I think it was worth it. It wasn't something that was really quick, but I kind of wish that I was seeing what would have happened had Wilder stuck to the game plan, and instead of going back to his old ways, which cost him.
Yeah. And like I said before, like, I don't really know too much about boxing, but I did like read up on it a little bit and everything. And just from like watching UFC and seeing stuff like boxing wise when I was growing up, I think what you said earlier about, you know, getting away from the game plan and just naturally going back into what you know. Like, I've seen that happen quite a bit in the UFC.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like I don't want to say like a human instinct, but like it's definitely like a natural reaction of like all of a sudden what you're trying to do isn't working, so you just go back to what's worked for you in the past. And
Absolutely.
so like I think that's a really good breakdown of kind of what happened there, because that's kind of what I was seeing too. Is what I was reading is a lot of people are like, yeah, he went back to just trying to hit him with that, hard right he's got and everything, but which
pretty much.
Granted, if it lands, like
he lives, and that's the thing with Wilder, is he lives and dies on that right hand. But and it kind of is instinctive if you think about it from a fighter standpoint, because Fury is a powerful puncher, and all it could have took was one really hard punch to get him good, and he was, rocked a couple times for you to automatically, you kind of go into a defensive mode, flight or fight mode, and of course it's a fight for him, right? So I do feel like at some point maybe he did drop the game plan, because instinctively once he got hurt, he was like, okay, I need to rely on, maybe not even think about it, and it happened, and like, okay, I'm gonna just start relying on my right hand and just land it, because he did land that right hand, and there was a couple of good shots in that on Fury. So I think that's just what happens, man. I mean, he got hurt, and as soon as he started getting hurt, he had some instincts kicked in. Unfortunately for him, those instincts were some of the bad habits that he needed to drop at the time. So yeah, but it was a good fight nonetheless.
Yeah, I heard it was really good. Definitely a lot of people are blowing it up on TikTok and Twitter and stuff. So it seemed like people that invested their time and money into the pay-per-view got their money's worth, which is always good.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so moving forward, we're going to continue to talk about NFL, but NBA is starting back up.
Yeah.
We're going to start diving into some of the NBA and what's going on there. I know, I don't know if it was last night or the night before, but LeBron, Melo, and Westbrook actually were all on the court together. And it seemed like they were having some fun jiving together. So it'd be very interesting to see like how all those pieces work for LA this year.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time before Russ does what Russ does. It causes issues. but I don't know, man. LeBron has got he's got a way of getting people to like. I think he knows how to lead the ship, like be the
Yeah,
captain. But I think he's also very aware of like this guy needs to do what he can do. Because like when he had Kyrie come in, it was like Kyrie followed, didn't try to lead, went along with what it was, and they worked well. And then when Kyrie broke off and went to the Celtics, it didn't jive too well. There was a lot of people like fighting for that, I guess, like leadership alpha mentality. And then you look at him with the Nets with Harden and Durant and them, and there were some issues there too, and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think LeBron understands like we all got egos here. Like, don't worry, I'll feed your ego, but like just kind of let me lead and everything. So he's got people usually buying into him.
yeah,
So
and
maybe he can get that out of Russ, but who knows, man? It's Russ.
yeah. The only thing that I would say, and I mean, of course, this is preseason, right? And I wouldn't doubt that because LeBron, I mean, being the kind of player he is, the kind of leader, and in my opinion, he's a coach and a player at the same time on the court. He usually brings out the best in guys, and it helps his teammates get better. I would say that this most recent game, that they lost to the Warriors against their bench really was they're not haven't looking too good. I think LeBron and Westbrook alone combined for like 10 turnovers each. So that was probably the bad part about that. Like, they just had a lot of turnovers. They didn't look too sharp out there. And it might just be like a thing that they need to mesh. I think they'll get better, but they haven't won a preseason game yet. So hopefully for the Lakers' sake, I mean, of course, I'm a Spurs fan, so I definitely don't care for the Lakers, but hopefully for their sake, they mesh better, and they probably will. But yeah, it didn't look too good the most recent game they had. But I'm sure they'll get
honestly,
better.
honestly though, yeah, like from little highlights and stuff I saw, they were doing like some like stupid no look passes and stuff. Like I think they were just
Yeah,
out there just vibing, man. Like
yeah, that's true.
so they'll be all right. They may start off slow in the year, but honestly, like when February rolls around, you'll see them take off and do what LeBron does and everything as long as they can stay healthy. Because that's the big thing too. They're older, and LeBron's had some like injury issues start to creep up past few years. AD has always been an injury like case.
Yeah,
You got Carmelo, who's definitely older. He's not as um, versatile as he was, but Russ is like super explosive and everything. So
yeah.
it'll just be interesting seeing how they all vibe together, how that stuff
Yeah,
comes
and
together.
yeah, and it's definitely not to discredit those guys just because of their age, at all. What I'm gonna say, but yeah, I think a lot of people forget, especially because they're gonna be playing the long seasons here. It's really rough on your body in general, even for a young player to play 82 games. I mean, you're constantly having to battle through injuries, soreness, your knees, your ankles, whatever it is. It's going to be interesting to see how this more, I would say, well-seasoned group of older guys
Mhm.
are going to be able to get through one, the regular NBA season, and then going into the playoffs where it gets more intense. And kind of like last year, where the Lakers got hit by the injury bug in the playoff time, it's going to be crucial. So, you know what all the guys on the roster are capable of? It's just a question of their durability. And when people do get hurt, who's going to fill in, who's going to
Yeah,
step up, and what they're going to be able to do. But they should definitely be a good team in the West. I don't doubt that the Lakers are going to, once they get clicking on all cylinders, and if everyone's healthy, they're going to be dropping a lot of points and winning games for sure on back-to-back occasions. Um, Another really interesting story that's going on right now, for people that may not know already, you probably do if you follow the NBA. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with Kyrie Irving and the Nets because I mean, as of right now, Kyrie Irving is not going to be doing anything related with the team, based on his decision not to get vaccinated. And I know that it's not just from the net standpoint requiring him to do it, but also I believe it's a mandate for the state of New York, like he has to, or
yeah.
he just can't play. So it's like, how good are the Nets going to be really without Kyrie? I don't know if they'll be as good, even though they do have Kevin Durant on the team still, and he's probably one of the best players in the world as well. I originally wanted to see the Nets get back to the same position they were in last year in the playoffs, and maybe even and get further. and I kind of pick them to maybe make the finals this year. But now I'm not too sure what's going to happen, especially if Kyrie just refuses to get vaccinated, which is his choice. Don't really want to go into too much about like that decision for someone personally, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be curious to see what happens because it is going to impact the team and his status for the year as a player.
I think something will give there. Like I think the league will either lighten up or they'll like he'll kind of cave in, especially when like you start missing games and practice and money starts coming out of your contract and you
Yeah,
start getting fined. Like that stuff can be a very quick motivator for sure. But I don't know. Kyrie's I don't want to say he's like set in his ways, but like he definitely stands by what he believes in and everything. So he
yeah,
doesn't really
for sure.
move too much on stuff. But that will be an interesting like development as the season definitely gets underway and continues on to see like how long that situation lasts. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're definitely gonna jump into some NBA topics. I definitely want to circle back around to college football, especially with Bama losing, top dog like going down the way they did at Texas A&M.
Crazy game.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that was definitely a trap game for sure. Should not have been by any means, but it definitely was. Yeah, we're gonna start definitely like covering a lot of more different segments and everything that we do moving forward. But to wrap it up and recap once again, I am Selfless Gaming. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram. Um, appreciate y'all tuning in. And little Jacob will let you close it out for us, man.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Little Jacob, can you see me on Twitch, Twitter. I have a Facebook page as well. It's Little Jacob with the three at the end instead of an E. And definitely, guys, let us know what your opinions are. Who do you think are some of the front runners for MVP in the NFL? And come to NBA, who do you think are going to be the best teams? How do you think the matchups are going to go? Let us know your opinions. Definitely great to get feedback from other people on what's going to be going on going forward. It's going to be exciting time. Before you know it, it's going to be playoff college football, playoff NFL games, and we're going to be deeper into the NBA season. So yeah, curious to hear you guys' thoughts on who you think are some of the better players in the NFL and who are the best basketball players going to be out there right now and what you guys think is going to happen. So appreciate y'all for tuning in and listening, as always.
And to wrap it up, all these episodes are on Spotify. You can find us at selfless underscore little underscore gaming on Spotify for all podcast episodes if you're just tuning in to the first time. We also take these live streams and we put them up on the YouTube of Selfless Gaming. So you can definitely like get your recaps there as well. But every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, we usually kick off these segments. So if you got any questions, jump in the stream and hit us up. We'll do the best we can to answer questions for you and get you set up, to win your fantasy leagues. So we appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all have a good night. Peace.
Laters.